Did you know there is a hidden conflict, a secret rivalry, a divine philosophical debate that has been raging in the heart of the cosmos since the beginning of time? A war fought not with swords and crowns, but with calendars and clocks. With ink and with moonlight, they told you Thoth was the god of wisdom and Khonsu was the god of the moon. Two distinct deities with separate, neatly compartmentalized roles in the grand Egyptian pantheon. But that is the lie. The great spiritual simplification, a tidy piece of bookkeeping designed to hide from you a profound and fundamental tension in the very nature of reality itself. The truth is, Thoth and Khonsu are not just two gods. They are two rival masters of time. Two opposing philosophies of how the universe should be measured, how reality should unfold, and ultimately, how your own life should be lived. This is not a myth. It is the story of the eternal, hidden war between the raw, cyclical, intuitive, and living time of the moon, and the precise, linear, intellectual, and abstract time of the divine mind. They did not want you to know about this conflict. They wanted you to believe that time is a simple, singular, and unquestionable reality, a neutral grid upon which your life plays out. They did not want you to know that you are living at this very moment as a citizen of two rival kingdoms of time, a soul torn between two opposing masters, and that the anxiety, the pressure, the relentless feeling of being out of sync, the profound sense of spiritual disconnection you feel is the direct result of their eternal, cosmic war. This is not a story about two ancient gods having a disagreement. This is the story of the great schism in your own soul, the foundational battle between your natural, rhythmic, feeling heart and your conditioned, logical, and measuring mind. And you are not a spectator in this war. You are the territory they are fighting to control. To understand the war, you must first understand the two kings of time in all their complexity and their power. Thoth is the great master of divine, intellectual time. He is the cosmic mathematician, the divine measurer, the celestial librarian, the one who looks at the infinite, chaotic, and formless flow of eternity and imposes upon it a perfect, predictable, and logical order. His is the time of the solar calendar, the 365 and a quarter days of the year, the precise and unwavering cycle of the sun that can be calculated millennia in advance. It is a time that is based on observation, yes, but its true power is in its abstraction, in its ability to be written down, to be recorded, to become a system. It is the time of history, of science, of law, of the rational mind. Thoth is the god of the clock, of the schedule, of the 5-year plan, of the written contract. His time is a straight line, a vector, an arrow that moves with relentless and predictable precision from a known past to a calculated future. His kingdom is a kingdom of order, of reason, of a universe that makes sense, a universe that can be understood, managed, and controlled. It is the time of the head. His rival, his shadow, his divine and necessary opposite is Khonsu. Khonsu is the god of the moon, and his time is not the time of the sun. It is a time that is fluid, cyclical, alive, and deeply mysterious. It is the time of the lunar cycle, the 29 5 days of the waxing and the waning, a cycle that is never quite the same, a rhythm that is always subtly shifting. It is a time that is not based on calculation, but on feeling, on intuition, on the direct, embodied experience of the ever-changing face of the night sky. Khonsu is the god of the rhythm, of the tide, of the pulse, of the heartbeat, of the woman's sacred cycle. His time is not a straight line, it is a spiral. It is an eternal dance of becoming and unbecoming, of light and shadow, of birth and death and rebirth. His kingdom is a kingdom of mystery, of emotion, of magic, of a universe that is not meant to be understood by the mind, but to be experienced by the soul. It is the time of the heart. In the original, perfect order of Ma'at, in the golden age of Zep Tepi, these two forms of time were meant to exist in a state of harmonious and sacred balance. They were seen as the two great divine hands of the cosmic clock, one marking the steady and predictable hours, the other marking the deep, internal, and cyclical rhythms. The solar time of Thoth was the great masculine structure of reality, the unwavering framework, the divine skeleton. The lunar time of Khonsu was the fluid, feminine, and life-giving energy that flowed within that structure, the divine blood. The mind and the heart, the logic and the intuition, were meant to be divine and equal partners in the governance of the cosmos. But the forbidden texts, the ones that speak of the great disharmony, of the fall from grace, tell of a time when this balance was broken. They speak of a philosophical schism, a divine argument between the two great masters of time. It was a war for the very soul of the universe and for the soul of humanity. Thoth, in his infinite love of order, of precision, of reason, began to see the cyclical, emotional, and unpredictable nature of Khonsu's time as a flaw, a source of chaos, an imperfection in his perfect, divine, and logical machine. He argued before the divine council that the universe needed a single, unified, and predictable standard of time for civilization to flourish. A time that could be written down, a time that could be used to build empires, to organize armies, to plant crops with scientific precision, to create a great and lasting society. He argued for the absolute supremacy of the solar calendar, for the undisputed rule of the logical mind. Khonsu, in his quiet, ancient, and patient wisdom, argued for the sanctity of the natural cycle. He argued that life is not a straight line, that the soul is not a machine, and that the attempt to impose a single, rigid, and unwavering order on a fluid and living universe was an act of profound and dangerous hubris. It was a war between the calendar and the tide, between the clock and the heartbeat, between the law of the mind and the law of the soul. And this argument was not just philosophical, it was a battle for the very life of the gods themselves. The great and famous myth of the 5 epigomenal days, the 5 extra days of the year, is the story of this conflict in action. The sun god Ra, the very embodiment of the solar principle, had become enraged with the sky goddess Nut and had cursed her, forbidding her to give birth on any of the 360 days of his perfect solar calendar. This was the tyranny of Thoth's perfect but ultimately sterile order. A world without birth, a world without a future. And it was Thoth himself, the very architect of that solar calendar, who had to find the solution. He had to go to Khonsu, the master of the moon, the keeper of the other time, and he had to make a wager. He had to challenge the god of the moon to a game of Senet, the ancient game of fate and destiny. This was not a casual wager. This was a battle of cosmic principles played out on the board of fate itself. The linear, unyielding time of the sun versus the cyclical, fluid time of the moon. And Thoth, the master of wisdom and strategy, won. His prize was not gold or power. His prize was a fraction of the moon's light, 1/72nd part of its radiance to be exact. This is not just a poetic detail. It is a precise alchemical formula. Thoth, divine wisdom, must use the subtle, intuitive, and cyclical power of the moon to win a victory over the brute, direct, and rigid law of the sun. He gathers these slivers of pure moonlight, these fragments of an older, deeper magic. And with them, he weaves 5 new days, which he adds to the end of Ra's 360-day calendar. These 5 epagomenal days, the days upon the year, are not solar days. They are lunar days. They are magical days, born of moonlight and wisdom. They exist outside the jurisdiction of Ra's curse. They are a liminal space, a sacred loophole in the fabric of time. And it is on these 5 magical days, these holy days that were won through a game of divine chess, that Nut, the sky goddess, is finally able to give birth to the 5 great gods who will govern the human drama. Osiris, Horus the Elder, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. This myth is a stunning and profound admission. It is the god of logic admitting that his own perfect system is a sterile prison, and that for any new life, any true creation, any future to occur, he must borrow the magic, the light, and the time of his great lunar rival. The evidence of this hidden conflict is not just in the myths. It is in the very structure of the Egyptian civilization itself. For most of their long history, the Egyptians lived with 2 calendars simultaneously. They had the official 365-day civil calendar, the solar calendar of Thoth. This was the calendar of the state, of the government, of the tax collector, of the scribe. It was the calendar of control. But they also had a lunar calendar, based on the cycles of the moon, which was used to determine the dates of their most sacred religious festivals, their most potent magical rites. This was the calendar of the heart, of the temple, of the soul. They lived as citizens of 2 rival kingdoms of time, every single day of their lives. The tension between the rigid demands of the state and the fluid needs of the soul was not an inner conflict. It was written into their very calendar. They were a people who understood, with a depth we can no longer comprehend, that they were living in 2 different currents of time at once. The censored documents, the magical and medical papyri that were used by the initiates of the mystery schools, tell a different and more nuanced story than the official state religion. The medical texts are obsessed with the influence of the moon on the body, on disease, on the humors, on the very fluids of life. They knew that the human body did not obey the neat, predictable, and logical rules of the solar calendar. It danced to the wild, fluid, and cyclical rhythm of the moon. And the magical texts are filled with complex rituals that had to be performed at very specific lunar times. On the new moon, on the full moon, on the waning moon, in the precise hour of the night. The priests and the magicians, the ones who were working with the deep, energetic realities of the cosmos, knew a profound secret. They knew that while Thoth may rule the daylight world of the empire, it was Khonsu who was the true master of the hidden, magical, and powerful world of the night. And there is a strange and recurring image, found only in the most secret of the underworld texts, the ones that map the soul's final journey. An image of Thoth in his sacred baboon form, sitting on top of the great scales at the final judgment, the weighing of the heart. But he is not alone. Sitting on the other side of the scale, as a silent and equal counterweight to his own symbol, is a perfect crescent moon, the emblem of Khonsu. What does this mean? It is a heretical and profound statement. It means that at the final, ultimate judgment of the soul, your life is not just weighed against the perfect, logical, and absolute truth of Thoth. It is also weighed against the cyclical, compassionate, and mysterious wisdom of Khonsu. It means that your heart is not just judged by its adherence to the written law, but also by its ability to dance, to feel, to love, and to flow with the great tidal rhythms of life. It is the ultimate statement of the equality of the two great cosmic principles. And this leads us to the great and most challenging hypothesis. What if the war between Thoth and Khonsu was never truly resolved? What if Thoth, the god of the intellect, of science, of the state, of the clock, ultimately won the battle for the control of human civilization? And what if we are now living deep in the heart of the aftermath of that victory? A world that is ruled almost exclusively by the solar time of the clock, of the calendar, of the deadline. A world that has completely and utterly forgotten the sacred cyclical time of the moon. This would explain the profound and pervasive sickness of the modern soul. A soul that is forced to live in a state of perpetual, linear, and unsustainable progress. A soul that is told that it must always be productive, always be active, always be shining, always be moving forward in a straight line. A soul that is given no time, no space, no permission for the sacred darkness of the new moon, no time for rest, no time for grief, no time for the slow, cyclical, and necessary process of falling apart and coming back together again. What if the epidemic of anxiety, of burnout, of depression is not a psychological problem, but a temporal one? What if it is the collective, agonized cry of a lunar soul that has been imprisoned in a solar cage? The great conflict between Thoth and Khonsu is not a cosmic drama from a forgotten time. It is the central conflict within your own being. You are Thoth. You are your magnificent, logical, and analytical mind. The part of you that can create plans, that can build structures, that can understand the world through reason and through science. This is a divine and powerful gift. It is the great architect of your life. But you are also Khonsu. You are your deep, intuitive, and cyclical heart. The part of you that feels, that dreams, that knows things without any evidence. The part of you that is connected to the great tidal rhythms of your own body, your own emotions, and the natural world. This too is a divine and powerful gift. It is the great poet of your life. The system you live in, the world that was created from the victory of the solar principle, has taught you that these two parts of yourself are at war. It has created a tyranny of the mind over the heart. It has taught you to trust your logic and to distrust your feelings. It has taught you to honor your schedule and to ignore your rhythms. It has taught you that your productivity is your worth and that your need for rest is a weakness. It has made you a stranger to your own inner moon, a king who is terrified of the tides of his own soul. And so, you are at war with yourself. You are a being of profound and beautiful rhythms, trying to live the life of a straight line. And the friction, the exhaustion, the soul sickness of that impossible and unnatural effort is the defining feature of your modern life. The path of awakening, the path of restoring Ma'at, is the path of making peace between these two great kings of time within you. It is the journey of becoming a conscious master of your own inner calendar, of your own inner clock. It is about learning to honor your inner Thoth, to use your magnificent mind to create, to plan, to build. But it is also about learning to honor your inner Khonsu. To know, with a deep and profound wisdom, when it is time to throw the plan away. When it is time to rest, even when the world tells you to hustle. When it is time to feel your grief, even when the world tells you to be positive. When it is time to trust your gut, even when the world tells you to be rational. It is about learning to create a sacred and holy space in your life for the cycles of the moon. for the darkness and the silence and the introspection of the new moon, for the vibrant, creative, and emotional peak of the full moon, for the gentle, graceful, and necessary process of letting go of the waning moon. This is a spirituality that is far beyond the simplistic and aggressive hustle and grind culture that is the final, toxic expression of the solar tyranny. It is a spirituality that honors both the work and the rest, the thinking and the feeling, the doing and the being. It is a path that requires a new kind of courage. The courage to be unproductive, the courage to be emotional, the courage to be cyclical in a world that demands you to be a straight line. You must become the priest of your own inner temple, the one who knows when to make the offerings to the god of the sun, and when to turn and light the sacred silver candles for the god of the moon. You must be the one who willingly and consciously harmonizes the two great calendars that are at war within you. This is not just a psychological practice. It is an act of cosmic revolution, because the world around you is a direct and painful reflection of the tyranny of the mind over the heart. A civilization that is terrified of its own cycles will create a world that is unsustainable. A world of endless economic growth that will consume its own planet. A world that is addicted to the artificial and relentless light of the 24/7 screen and is terrified of the natural and healing dark. The healing of the world begins with the healing of your own relationship to time. When you learn to honor your own inner cycles, you are sending a wave of healing, harmonic, and lunar energy out into the cosmos. You are whispering to the great wounded heart of the world, it is okay to rest. It is safe to feel. The night is not your enemy. It is your mother. So, is the rivalry between Thoth and Khonsu a forgotten myth? A political story of the struggle between the solar and lunar priesthoods? A sophisticated psychological allegory for the conflict between our mind and our heart? Or is it a literal description of a cosmic disharmony? A fundamental schism in the nature of time itself that has left us living in a world that is dangerously out of sync with its own soul? Or is the most powerful truth that it is all of these things at once, and that the healing of the cosmos begins with the healing of your own relationship to the sacred and holy cycles of your own life? Let us know what you believe in the comments below.